त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नं विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
Namaste, dear friends. Suprabhatam, Sumadhyanam, and Susayam. So that was good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are, from whichever part of the world you have logged in from. So welcome once again, a very warm welcome, in fact, to each and every one of you on this 13th day of the Global Festival of Yoga celebrating wellness. We've had brilliant sessions so far, where we have collectively looked at different aspects of this yoga journey, from practitioners, young and very senior. This platform of Indica Yoga is meant to promote authentic, immersive and transformative yoga practices and teachings. So thank you very much for being part of this very enriching journey for us as organizers, and we've heard the same from many participants as well. Today we have yet another very important dimension of the yoga practice, and that is on the idea or the experience of the Surya Namaskara, the practice of the Surya Namaskara. So we have with us a very special guest, uh, Nitesh Batraji. So Nitesh Batraji is going to present to us the art of Surya Namaskara. If I have to summarize Nitesh ji, I would say it in these few words. I haven't known him for a very long time, but the little that I have known him, we have connected immediately as part of the larger yoga family. So, a few words on him that come to me immediately, spontaneously to mind. He's a genuine seeker, a gentle speaker, a doting father, and a dedicated practitioner. Some practical information about him. So he is the founder of Ashtanga Yoga Sadhna, and he has learned his Ashtanga Yoga since 2009 under the tutelage of his guru, Sri Sharath Jois. He is the founder of of Ashtanga Yoga Sadhana in Bangalore and of a podcast, a very beautiful podcast called Mindful Initiatives, where he has interviewed several very eminent people like Hyupten Jinpa, who's been the long time principal translator of the Dalai Lama, Chris Germer, who's a lecturer on psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School and the co-founder of he's the co-founder of the Mindful Compassion, and under whom he has also studied. So, and Sri M. So he's got some excellent interviews on that podcast. So please tune into that podcast to learn about the inner stories also of a lot of these very devoted practitioners. A few more things about him. He is an engineer by training, but he has moved on to human engineering, and he teaches contemplative practices like mindfulness and compassion in higher education and organizations. So I think without standing in between you and him much longer, I would love to invite Nitesh ji to please lead us on the session on the art of Surya Namaskara. Before I hand over the mic to you, I would just like to mention to our participants, many of you who might have been come here for the first time, please ask your question and answers in the Q&A box, because then it's easy for us to ensure that we pay attention to them. Secondly, because you are logging in from different parts of the world, do let us know where you're coming in from. So let us know which country you are from. Let us know how you have learnt about this program. And yeah, if you want, if there's anything more that you feel like sharing with us and sharing with our world audience, please feel free to do so. We'd love to hear from you. Without you, this program would not be the success that it is, or it has been so far. So look forward to hearing from you, Nitesh ji. Over to you. Looking forward to your presentation and practice.
Am I on the screen? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a kind introduction and the opportunity to you, Vinayji, and Indica Yoga to make this presentation and talk about my journey and share about Surya Namaskar. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about a few things that have happened in my life. So what I would like to start with is just a settling practice. So I may request everyone to just close their eyes uh, for a for a few breaths, maybe inhaling through our nose and exhaling through our mouth. Inhaling through our nose and exhaling through our mouth. Inhaling one more time and exhale. Let's open our eyes. So I'm going to share a presentation. So I hope everyone can see the presentation. So today, what we are going to go through our just some basic introduction of what Suryanamaskars are, various types of Suryanamaskar. But the essence of today's session is going to be about the underlying theme of why we do yoga asanas, why we do pranayama, what are the different aspects which are related to yoga. Then we'll do some practice about Surya Namaskar. Well, we'll do some practice of Surya Namaskars. If you're from the Ashtanga tradition, you may already know of these Surya Namaskars, but I'm going to make it really simple, break it down as much as I can. And then we get into the more detailed and depth of the philosophy of Surya Namaskars and what it has taught me in my life. And towards the end, as Anuradha Bhagini mentioned, we'll have some Q&A. If you have some Q&A, or have some questions, please let me know these questions, and we'll speak about them at the end. All my presentations, I like to start with an Ashtanga chant, at least for the Surya Namaskar practice. The Ashtanga chant is a chant that my Guruji has taught me, and this is from Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, a mixture of those. A mixture of Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. So let's all close our eyes, hands in prayer position. Om Vande Gurunam Charana Ravinde Sandarishita Swatma Sukha Vabodhe Nishreyase Jangali Kayamane Samsar Halahal Moha Shantyai Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakra Siddharinam Sahasra Shirsam Shwetam Pranamami Patanjalim So thank you to our teachers, because of whom I'm here. So I've had many teachers in my life, and one of the first ones are my parents, whom I have the utmost gratitude towards. So my father is no more, and my mother Shashi. So always I'm very grateful for what they have given me in my life. I've had many teachers in my life, in my yoga journey, but three of them have been very influential. I started my journey with Dorcas in Maryland, whom I studied with for some time in the beginning, which started back in 2005. Then, of course, Sri Sharath Jois in Mysore, who has been really instrumental in my asana practice, which I continue till date. And Sri A.G. Mohan, from whom I studied online for a long period of time, and a couple of years ago, I got an opportunity to study with both him and Indraji to learn yogic mindfulness, and I continue to learn from each one of them, or at least stay in touch with them as much as I can, or as much as they can, based on their availability. About me, as I think Anuradha Bhagini mentioned, that I've studied engineering and then my MBA, and I also did a compassion cultivation training, which is what I teach in terms of the contemplative practices. And yoga has been a huge part of my life, and that has really moved me in different areas. To begin the conversation today, this is a photograph that was taken on the border of Palestine and Israel in 2019 by a photojournalist who went on to capture certain things. And And these young ladies would come away from their houses up in the mountains to practice yoga. And in the detailed description of this photograph, it said that yoga was life to these women. And for me, it has been the same. And over the next 30 or 35 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the nuances, why it has been life for me, why it has been an important aspect for my life. The purpose of yoga as defined by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, for some of you who may not know that this is the text where it describes the practices of yoga. And the purpose defined in the Yoga Sutras in the first chapter is that yoga helps with the cessation of thoughts of our mind. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. And there are many ways that have been described in the Yoga Sutras of how we do that. But today we're going to use, like I mentioned, Suryanamaskar as the background for how we can help quieten our mind. This internal communication which keeps happening within our mind, within our body, maybe to understand it, maybe to use it for our benefit, for our growth. So Suryanamaskars, there are a couple of stories about Suryanamaskars that I would like to share with you. And the first one starts with this practice of chanting the Vedas, the Rig Vedas. It goes all the way back. And Rig Vedas, the first sutra or the first starting word is Agni. And when we talk about Agni at that point of time, starting with the Vedas, we've been fascinated by the nature. At that point, we may not have had the science to understand what the sun meant to us, but we knew it was something important, and that's why it was mentioned in the Vedas to us. And so at that point of time, maybe there was no Surya Namaskar as we know of it today, but there was something what we call a Surya Upasana. And Surya Upasana is the meditation of the sun, meditation of the qualities of the sun that we would like to imbibe in our life. So here goes the story of how Surya Namaskar in the mythological ways may have originated. When Lord Hanuman was a child, he was fascinated by eating mangoes, and he was looking around and he looked at the sun and mistook it for a mango, and he jumped up because he had all the powers he needed at that point of time, and gobbled the entire sun. And as soon as he gobbled, the world went into darkness. All the gods and goddesses, all the people of the world started worrying, what is happening? What should we do? And so they went up to the king of gods, Indra. And Indra is like, how can a child do this? So he takes out his weapon and throws it onto the jaw of Hanuman, who gets hurt, and he opens his mouth, and the sun comes out, and the nature has restored what was originally there. And because of the way the mouth was injured or jaw was injured, that's why Hanuman got his name, Hanu. And the father of Hanuman, Vayu, got really furious. He's like, how can you do this to my son? So he stopped the wind. And then there was some negotiation process between the gods and Vayu, and the negotiation came up to a point where it said that Hanuman will have all the qualities of gods and goddesses, and he'll go and serve Lord Ram, and that's when the full breadth of his power will come out. Now Hanuman, as he's growing older, he wants to learn a little bit more about our Vedas and some of the other scriptures that he has, and his mother, she recommends that, why don't you go and ask the Surya Bhagavan, the Sun Lord, to teach me all the Vedas. And he goes up to Surya Bhagavan and Sun God and says, I'm sorry, I hope you're still not upset with me with all that happened. He's like, no, but I can't teach you because I don't have time. And Hanuman, as persistent he is, he's like, no, I will learn from you. I'll do anything. He's like, I can't stop because I have to keep moving. I have to keep doing my duty. So as the sun is doing its duty and the earth is going on its 24-hour path, it is said that the Hanuman comes in front of the sun god, and as it's going around, or the earth is revolving and rotating, he backwards keeps in front of Suryanamaskar, in front of Surya Bhagavan, to learn everything that the sun god has to teach him. And he's able to master everything within a week. And the sun god was Surya Bhagavan was so happy with his learning, the way his dedication and perseverance to learn. And he blessed him with all his powers. And Hanuman asked, what can I do for you, Lord? You have been my teacher. You've been my guru. And he's like, there's nothing that's required. So that's when Hanuman says, I will do Suryanamaskars for you. And that's when the Suryanamaskara, or rather Surya Upasana meditation came along. But more practical theory of practical example of, practical starting of Suryanamaskars came in the 1920s. It wasn't sure that Suryanamaskar were happening, but I'm sure Asana practice was part of it. When the king of Ond in Maharashtra published a book on Suryanamaskars and asked the people of Ond and Maharashtra, all men, women, and children, to practice Suryanamaskars. And of course, Krishnamacharya, who had learned from his teacher, Krishnamacharya is known as the father of modern yoga, who's the teacher of my teacher's grandfather, B.K.S. Iyengar. Pattabhijos is from the Ashtanga lineage, where he went and learned Suryanamaskars and other forms of asanas from Rammohan Brahmachari. And it's said that there is a book called Yoga Kurunta. That's where these practices have been explained. I think no one has seen those. No one has seen that book, but it seems to exist. These are some pictures that exist of Krishnamacharya's back from the 20s. This is all I could find. I don't have an entire sequence of Surya Namaskar for him, but I believe there are certain photographs that do exist about the Surya Namaskars. Now, given that that's the story of Surya Namaskars for us, what I would like to do is get into a little bit practical aspect of Surya Namaskars, how we practice, and also understand it from an asana perspective. So for some of you who have been practicing yoga or not, asana seems to be a good entry point to learn about the yoga practice. And the reason why I say it's the asana practice is because it's something physical. Physical is something that we are used to. We see our hands, we can see things, we can hear things. And when you do an asana practice, you experience something from the outside. But there is something going on inside, which we'll talk a little bit later. But asana is a great entry point. And Surya Namaskar seems to be a place where a lot of people tend to start their practice. For some, it's quite challenging because it can be daunting looking at how difficult it can be or how easy it can be, especially if you're not used to the practice. But the important thing is that yoga asana practice and yoga practice is there for everyone. My teacher used to say that the people who can't practice yoga are the ones that are lazy. And it's something that I've come to believe in, that if you want to practice any aspect of yoga, whether that's the asana practice, pranayama practice, or the meditation practice, it's all available to you. You can do it if you have the willingness and dedication to do it. So like I mentioned, the first entry point is the asana practice, and we're going to talk about Surya Namaskars. And there are three main foundations which serve as the pillars for Suryanamaskars. The first is the asana practice, which are the bandhas. We won't get into the bandhas part of it, but we need to make sure that our body is erect when we are doing our practice. All our senses are engaged. And the second aspect is the breathing aspect. And breathing is where things become interesting because we all consciously or unconsciously breathe, but there is this idea of conscious breathing. The beauty of the human body lies in that at any point, if I would like to breathe, I just take that breath in, I let go, and the body starts breathing by itself. So in this practice of realization, because we're talking about Surya Namaskars and learning certain foundations that are extremely critical or important for us to understand, we just work on the Ujjayi breathing, which is just slowly breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your nose. Breathing in so a combination of movement and Ujjayi breathing is what is called as vinyasa. And that is what we'll be doing shortly. I know people have logged in from different parts of the world, and it might be late at night, so I don't expect you to practice, but please feel free to join if you would like, or you can see it whatever is easier for you. And as I mentioned, that is the Ujjayi, that is the Vinyasa practice. And one final note about the Surya Namaskar, there are many variations for Surya Namaskar. There is this classical variation which has 12 steps as part of it from the right and the left. It is said that it was derived because of the 24-hour movement, that for every hour you have a movement. But we're going to do a version between, which is from the Ashtanga tradition, which has 9 vinyasas or 9 movements from it. If we have time, we'll go through the second version of it, but we'll try and stick with the first version of it for now. So I'll move back and go to the mat. So you may not be able to hear me as clearly as I wanted you to be. There was some malfunction with the microphone this morning, but I'll try my best to be loud enough for you to hear my voice. And I try to make it as simple as possible for many people. And then I'll make it a little bit more hard. Well, hard is of course very relative, but I'll try to at least make you understand some part of the Surya Namaskar. Sorry, I forgot to mention the third part of the Surya Namaskar is the drishti, which is our focus. And that focus comes in when we hold the asanas. So for now, when we hold the asanas, we'll just look at our navel. So that's what's important for us to understand. So I'm going to stop the sharing so that you can see me. So as I mentioned, these are 9 steps. You can come to the front of the mat. You can bring your hands up in the air, look up, inhale up. Exhale, you can bend forward, bend your knees, head to knee. Inhale, bring your hands on your shins. Chatvari, go. Take your right leg back, left leg back, go all the way down. You can bring your knees down and come all the way down. Again, inhale, go up, look up. Shut, exhale, you can go back on your knees and then go on your feet. Stay here for 5 long breaths. 1. Breathe in with sound. 2. 3. 4. 5. We slowly come forward. Some of you may not be able to come forward directly, so you can walk forward. Look straight ahead. Ashta, bend forward. You can bend your knees again. Nava, inhale, hands go up in the air, look up. Exhale, samasthiti. So as we walk, we breathe in and breathe out. Breathing using your nostrils. If you have difficulty or if you have asthma, you may want to exhale through your mouth, but try and inhale through your nose if that's possible. If you have back pain, of course, take some precaution by bending your knees a little bit more. So there are certain contraindications that you should follow when you do this Surya Namaskar practice. Uh, but I'm trying to make it as simple as I can here so that it's accessible to almost everyone. So we'll try Surya Namaskar again. A, come, inhale, hands go up in the air. Dwe, exhale. If you need to bend your knees, bend your knees. Trini, inhale, look straight ahead. Chatwari, right leg back, left leg back. You can go all the way down if you would like. Panja, inhale up, look up. Shat, exhale, back. 5 breaths, breathing with sound. 1. So I'll come onto the side so that you can see that you try and place your feet on the ground if possible. For some people, the feet might be up here, which is fine. Whatever it is, just continue to breathe for 5 times. 3, 4, 5. We'll slowly come back, right leg forward, left leg forward, look straight ahead. Bend forward, bend your knees, hands go up in the air, and samasthiti. Sorry, I tucked my shirt in, that might be easier. So the important thing to realize when we're doing the Surya Namaskar or any asana practice, that your breath may be shallow initially, or you may not be able to match your breath and your movement. So don't worry about it. Take a couple of breaths if you have to go back, because certain asanas here or certain movements here are quite long. So it's a little bit challenging to use one breath initially. But as you continue to practice over a period of time, it will become easier. So we'll try Surya Namaskar one more time. Inhale up, look up. Dwe, exhale, bend forward. 3, inhale, look straight ahead. Chatwari, right leg back, left leg back. So you can go all the way down if you would like, or if you would like a little bit challenge, you just go all the way down, just hover over, and pancha, inhale, look up, look up. And then shut, exhale, back. 5 breaths. 1. So you may want to spread your fingers here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring your right leg forward, left leg forward, look straight ahead. Look straight ahead. Ashta, bend forward. Nava, inhale, hands go up in the air. Samasthiti. So the idea is to slow down as much as you can initially. And as you slow down and practice, you'll start feeling the physical aspect of this practice. There is some heat that's generated when you do Surya Namaskar. And we refer that to Agni, as I mentioned initially when we were talking about the presentation. So slow down. So this time we'll really slow down our practice. A, come, inhale, up. And it's okay to breathe 2 times if you are unable to breathe. We'll hold here for 1, 2, 3. So we'll bend forward. 3D, inhale, look straight ahead. Chatwari, right leg back, left leg back. You can bring the knees down if you would like. Panja, inhale up. Shat, exhale, back. 5 breaths here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come forward, look straight ahead. Ashta, bend forward. Nava, inhale, hands go up in the air. Exhale, Samasthiti. We'll try it one last time. Relax your toes, stand on your heels. Engage the entire body. Come, inhale, look up. Dwe, exhale. 3, inhale, look straight ahead. Chatwari, go back, right leg back, left leg back. Pancha, inhale up, look up. Shat, exhale, back. We'll hold only for 3 breaths here. 1, 2, 3. Come forward, look straight ahead. Ashta, bend forward. Nava, inhale, hands go up in the air. Samasthiti, hands by your side. So that was a basic primer for Suryanamaskars with the movement. I feel that Suryanamaskar is a good way to warm up, a good way to start connecting with our body, a good way to understand what is happening. Maybe we are feeling tired somewhere because we slept awkwardly or we did something during the day if we are practicing in the evening. So it's a good way to realize and understand a little bit more about our body. But I think there is a deeper meaning of Surya Namaskars. There is a deeper meaning of the asana practice. There is a deeper meaning of yoga, which I mentioned is yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that there is something going on in our mind. And when there is something going on in our mind, sometimes we're unable to speak to it. Sometimes we're not able to understand it. So I believe that the breath is the communication that's happening from the outside to the inside. So that's where the breathing aspect comes in. And the other thing which I believe is extremely important and not talked about are our emotions. When you're doing the asana practice, I can talk about my initial days of challenge, and I do get challenged nowadays as well. That certain things are extremely challenging for me. Certain things are still extremely difficult for me, and they will be for me for throughout my life. But slowly, one after the other, I'm trying to overcome them. That's what my intention is. When we start a practice, so I believe that an intention setting is one of the most important things. So because we're not looking from the outside only, we start looking inside. And what is this intention thing? So that's where the next part of the presentation talks about what are some of the other things that we should be doing. So let me just share the presentation. Give me a second. So as we continue to live our life, there are a lot of things that are happening outside. You go through the day with the pandemic happening, with situations in certain parts of the world, uh, just changed overnight in the last few months. Uh, what the comforts we had before, we don't have those comforts, and our mind starts to think negatively. The negative thoughts start to come up. I don't like the idea of saying negative thoughts, but these thoughts are not so positive, which make us fearful of our future. And that is where the power of Yoga Sutras comes in, where it talks about how we can start with building an intention that we keep reminding ourselves. So our intention is the idea that we can keep coming back to, that I'm going to have positive thoughts throughout the day. So Vidarka Badane Pratipaksha Bhavanam is is cultivating a feeling, a bhavana inside our mind that I'm going to have positive feelings throughout. So this is a sutra from the second chapter, the 33rd sutra. There are many intentions that you can create, but this is a sutra that is easy for us to keep coming back. That as soon as the mind comes up with negative thoughts, can I bring it to the positive? I wish it was as easy as that. For some people, it is. And we can relate it to the Surya Namaskar practice as well. I remember when I started the Surya Namaskar practice, it was back in 2005 or 6, somewhere, or the Asana practice, it was around that time. And the challenges were different. The challenges were, oh, I'm not able to, like I mentioned, put my feet down onto the ground, or I'm not able to bend forward, or I'm not able to be like this or be like that or something. I started comparing myself based on what others were doing. But I was still in kindergarten, I was still a beginner. And that's the part that I missed. That's the part that I felt I could have done better. But over the years, I have realized that if you have the right intentions, if you have to have the understanding that whatever you're doing, it's a long haul, be nice to yourself. Don't judge yourself. And how do we do that is something that we'll see. I'll share some experiences and some stories about that part as well. So the first part of doing that is an intention setting practice. So we'll set our intentions saying that I hope my practice is well. When we did the mantra Vande Gurunam, so we set an intention that today I'm here because of my teachers, and let my practice be good. Let my practice be whatever it is. And that is what our intention is. The second part, which is amazing, I think it's the core of the asana practice or pranayama or meditation practice, is this idea of attention. This idea of attention when you are with yourself through your breath. Through your breath, you're able to connect yourself. So if I sit here, I'm thinking about that there are people watching me, but at the back of my mind, what should I say next is coming in. So a lot of thoughts are coming in, maybe thoughts about last night, maybe thoughts about, oh, I wish the microphone would have worked, or I wish I would have done this, or wow, it's happening great. But if I'm here, how can I just be here? So that's the idea of attention. And if you look at Suryanamaskars, it's the same thing, that when you are doing the asana or the Surya Namaskar practice, can you just focus on Surya Namaskar? No matter where you are or who you are, no matter how your asana looks like, can I just practice right now? Can I enjoy this breath? Maybe for some of you, it may have been the first time that you connected with your breath. And I feel every time I connect with my breath, there is this air of calmness for me. And the way that happens, as described in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, there are two ways that he talks about. There are two distinct ways. The way I think about that is that you have to continuously practice. abhyasa. Abhyasa is continuously keep practicing whatever is happening. And then whatever is happening with that practice, have detachment. Don't worry about the end results. Bhagavad Gita says that, and we know of all scriptures and different people that they keep talking about. My teachers keep saying, don't be worried about the results. But I come from a system where I'm so attached to the results. In our schools, there is this race to be at the top, whether you are at the in a competition or you're playing a sport, that you have to be the best. You have to keep doing. So there's this attachment to the results, that am I looking good? Am I not looking good? And maybe there is a certain degree that you can think, yeah, you may have certain attachments. But Patanjali says, no. You keep doing your practice. And this is where the idea of Kriya Yoga comes in. Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana. Tapas is you keep doing the abhyasa again and again and again. Whatever your duty, whatever your responsibility is, and have a moment for self-reflection. Have a moment for self-reflection. And I feel in the asana practice, when I am there, there is a lot of swadhyaya that's going on. When you do pranayama, when you do especially the meditation practices, there is a lot of time for contemplation, a lot of time for this looking deep within the practice. There are a lot of studies that have gone on which talk about how it benefits us inside these practices of self-reflection and detachment. But there is an interesting book that was written, which is called The Happiness Hypothesis, if I'm not wrong, where it says that with our mind, it has this memory that keeps coming back, which we call as samskaras, that it stores everything at our back of our head or wherever the mind is. But now the new studies that are coming up that are saying that all our body parts have certain muscle memory. So if you are, let's say, trying to do a Suryanamaskar practice and you attend this session where you learned a little bit about Suryanamaskar practice, or you go attend a workshop about the asana practice, your mind wanted some knowledge. Your mind wanted that knowledge. So you go in and you learn this practice, whatever that practice is. And next day, when in the morning, the alarm rings at, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, the body doesn't want to get up. But the mind says, no, I have went and learned about this Suryanamaskars and beautiful asanas and pranayama and meditation. But that body's like, that's your problem, not my problem. And I think that is where the difference lies, is that you have to keep practicing again and again, whether it's your body and your mind, both of them need to be trained. And that's when we get into the next part of cultivation of certain practices. When in the essence of time, we're not going to practice the Suryanamaskars because we have little time. I was thinking that we'll be able to do that, but we won't have time. That repetition is what's needed. We talked about Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana. But by repetition of certain things, you'll be able to train your mind. But ultimately, you have to look at the qualities of the mind, right? Eventually, every action you take, the decision is being taken from your brain. Where if you're listening something, it's going to my brain and coming back and responding in certain way. So there are 4 qualities which Patanjali mentions: Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshana. And these 4 qualities are what are the important things for us. We'll look at the first one, which is the Maitri aspect of it. And Maitri, as we know, is friendship. If we talk about in Hindi, Mitra. If we talk about from an English perspective, it's loving kindness. Or if we talk about from Buddhism perspective, it's metta in the Pali language, whatever that is. So we need to cultivate this idea of Maitri to the mind. The mind is your friend. The mind is your friend. And if you start understanding that these are the four qualities of the mind, Maitri, Karuna. Karuna is compassion, third is joy, and fourth is common humanity. And if you become friends with your mind, you may have had experiences with your friend that when you're friends with someone, things become easier, right? But when you meet someone for the first time, there is some awkwardness there. Like as if you're going on a first date, for example, or you go to school for the first time, or your job for the first time. You do something for the first time, there is some degree of awkwardness. But over a period of time, if you're able to understand that these are the qualities of our mind, Maitri, Karuna, Mudito, Pekshana, you're able to understand. And the work has been done for us. We have already been told that these are the qualities. Now it's our purpose to cultivate that friendship. Well, some people already have these qualities from childhood, but we can always do better. Let's say you're having a bad day and you get angry at someone, or you're having those negative thoughts as you were talking about. Now our mind has this ability that it goes on a downward slope. But can you come back to it that our mind has this idea that can I have this quality of loving kindness? Can I love everyone? Can I be kind to myself first and to the others? And when you're able to cultivate these qualities, that's when the power of the mind comes in. So we've not talked about when the mind calms down, what happens to the Purusha and Prakriti. We're not talking about all that at this point of time. In the practice today, we're just mentioning what are the qualities of the mind and how we can cultivate that quality. So one of the ways we've talked about this, one of the ways we do that, the metta meditation is through repetition, as I talked about. There are 12 Surya Mantras, as some of you may already be aware. We'll talk about the first one. We'll just talk about the first one. Om Hrim Mitraya Namaha. Om Hrim is the Bij mantra. Hri comes Ha and Ri, the two root words. Ha is the Akash, Ra is the sun. So we're looking at the sun in the Akash, in the mountain, or sorry, not in the Akash, in the sky. We're looking at the sun. But can we, when we do our practice, whatever practice that we do, can we repeat this idea of having this quality, Om Hrim Mitraya Namaha. And when we are saying these words, the language is not important. Can we really say it from our heart? For some people who may not speak Sanskrit, it's not necessary to speak the language, but what is important is the vibration that accompanies. What's coming from within is extremely important. What is the intention that we are cultivating within our body, within our mind, within our heart, so that the truest essence of the human being, which is to be happy and at peace, comes out in that way. We are able to go through this quality. So the way I would describe the quality, these four qualities, or Maitri, it's the gatekeeper, right? You're able to access the infiniteness of your mind if you are able to train your mind in Maitri and Karuna, in French, in loving kindness, and then eventually compassion and some of the others. And when you're able to access those infinite qualities about our mind, infinite potential of our mind, a whole new world opens to us. So keep repeating this practice of saying the word again and again, but say it from the truest essence. And when you say it from deep within, just like the vocal cords, we need two things to say things, right? We need two cords, we need two hands to clap, right? Whenever you're saying something. Similarly, when you say these things from deep within, right, there is that idea that's coming out, that your mind is the other person that's trying to speak to your heart, you're able to have some sort of that eventual magic which will open up your mind, that you can go beyond it. Uh, and by speaking from the truest essence of your heart, you're able to do that. Right? I think we have. Why don't we do the Smarta Gayatri, which can be the final, which can be the final practice for today, and then we'll take some Q&A. And if you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. So Smarta Gayatri is the Gayatri of the sun. Gayatri, as we know, has 24 syllables in it. And this is the Gayatri which helps us build the intention towards the sun, the qualities that the sun has, which we are able to imbibe in our life. And it has 4 lines, just like the Gayatri Mantra, which some of you may be aware of. It goes, I'll give you the gist of the meaning, which says that the qualities which the sun has help us walk on the path of dharma, take the unnecessary qualities away from our life and give us what we need. And the qualities of the sun, will consider that to be Maitri today, giving us loving kindness. So we'll close our eyes. I'll say it one time and then I'll repeat it again so that you can repeat it with me. Yo Devah Savitasmakam, Yo Devah Savitasmakam, Dhiyo Dharmadhigocharaha, Dhiyo Dharmadhigocharaha, Prerayetasya Yadbhargaha, Prerayetasya Yadbhargaha, Tadvarenyam Upasmahe, Tadvarenyam Upasmahe. Maybe keeping both your hands on your heart. Sitting quietly. Just a couple of breaths. And then opening our eyes. And then I will stop the presentation and hand it over back to Anuradha Bhagini.
Namaste and Bahu Dhanyavada for taking the audience through an interesting journey of the Suryanamaskara, where you told us about the origins of this practice, and then took us through the asanas themselves, and then its relationship with the mantras that are associated with it. So I think that's very special for the audience to have the whole package, in a sense, of this practice. So thank you very much. We have a lot of appreciation coming in from the participants. There are a few questions which I will ask you from here. So the first one which came right at the beginning was by Anagha Athavleji. She says that, what is the effect of the sun salutation on our mental health? Please comment.
I think that's a great question to start with. So like I mentioned in the beginning, there are many types of Suryanamaskars. The idea of Suryanamaskar practice, if we look at from a more philosophical standpoint, that we are connecting our heart to the qualities of the sun. We are trying to imbibe all that the sun gives us, that it is always there, it is giving us the light, it is giving us life, and it's always shining bright. And the truest meaning, I believe, is that if you're able to make that connection, and most times we do this in the beginning of the practice, that we do this in Namaskar, if you're able to bring that qualities in your practice, you're able to take this practice off the mat and use the same qualities throughout the day. Because you may be on the mat, let's say, for half an hour, an hour, a little bit longer or less for some people. But what happens outside when you go? Uh, you're not going to be in the safe zone of your mat. You're going to be facing certain challenges during the day. But if you remember what is important, what are the qualities that you have, which are the qualities of Maitri and Karuna, the most important, being of compassion, but loving kindness equally important. And if you're able to use your qualities to respond to different situations, respond to different challenges in the mind, uh, things become a lot easier. So I think the purpose of Surya Namaskar is to just remind yourself that I am beyond my physical body. There is something happening that's inside, which is related to our mind, which is related to our emotions, which is related to our spirit.
Wonderful. So I think this one point that has stuck with everybody. I mean, a lot of comments on that I'm seeing is your what you said, that the mind, make your mind your friend. I think that is going to be a very important takeaway from your session here. And we have another question, which is that one was regarding just the posture of it, where we have Sitaji who's saying that did you skip the Ashwa Sanchalana step uh, on purpose, or is this another method?
So Ashwa Sanchalana is part of the classical Surya Namaskar. Again, it's good that that people notice. So the Surya Namaskar that we did was not the 12-step classical Surya Namaskar. The Surya Namaskar that we used as the foundation on the base for the practice today was the Ashtanga Tradition Suryanamaskar, which has 9 steps in it, which uses the vinyasa practice using breath and body movement together. And when you do that, certain asanas are different than the classical Suryanamaskar practice.
Okay, there was also a related question about this not being the traditional one, which you have answered here. Someone else is asking us, thank you for your time and guidance. And then, is doing the Surya Namaskara also safe for those who have had ankle bursitis, tendonitis, and spur and knee stretch ligament? We also had Veronica G from, I think, the US, from Washington, if I'm not mistaken, who's a regular participant. She's also saying that while doing it, while I've been struggling to build strength to do the movement from plank to half plank. I developed shoulder bursitis, and what would you recommend to build strength on this? And I am not sure how wide the hands should be in the downward dog position. And could you explain? So whether people who have certain injuries should do it, and how can they strengthen?
That's a great question. And what was the last question, Bhagini? The hands.
How wide your hands should be in the downward dog?
Okay. So there are a couple of questions that I'll talk about. First is the injuries part of it. I think that's the eternal question for a lot of asana practitioners, that if you have injury, should I practice or should I not practice? And I'd just like to remind you that the practice of yoga is not just the asana practice. Yes, it's a practice to take care of your physical self, but it is a way to connect your outside to the inside. If you are physically unable to practice, don't. If you have injured yourself, rest and relax. It's important to heal. Asana practice, it is becoming like a sport. Unfortunately, we should look at asana as the foundation or a segue for us to go deeper into the practice. If you have injuries like the way that you mentioned, it's it's easy for me to say go speak to your doctor and see what's most suitable for you. But I'll tell you from my personal experience. I'll tell you a couple of stories about the injuries that I've had over the years. So I was quite mindless in the beginning of my practice years. I used to just be focused on the asana aspect, and that's what I understood. That's what my mind was ready for. And now I forgive myself because that's what I understood. That's what my mind was able to understand at that point of time. So I was mindful in the way that I was practicing, but mindless what I was practicing. And I injured my back before one of the important, I shouldn't say important, but one of my first 108 Suryanamaskar practice that I was doing. And I was like, no, I have to go and practice. So I went to a physiotherapist. I got myself fixed. I was like, just do anything so that I can. So it's like a competition, getting ready for that next match. And I went in, I did the practice, and I was like, yay, I did 108 Suryanamaskars. And I was like, wow, this is such a great thing. And right after the practice, I suffered for many months. The healing, which was supposed to happen probably over a couple of weeks, it went on for a very long period of time. And I believe that that's not the right thing to do. Uh, the practice of yoga is the ability to listen to yourself. The body is always communicating with you. The body is always talking to you. The mind is always talking to you. If you have, let's say, for example, that if you have injured a certain body part, maybe do modifications, right? Maybe do certain changes that you're able to do so that you're able to do certain parts of the practice. It's not important that you have to go through the entire sequence that you know. And when you develop a self practice, then it becomes easier. Uh, so the other important aspect is that we become dependent on certain things. So maybe dependent on a teacher, maybe dependent on the practice, that if I don't do the practice, I won't feel good. If I do like this, I may not be happy. Is that really so? How's that being any different than being addicted to, let's say, for me, chocolates, or for someone else, something else? The world has changed overnight for a lot of us, right? It's important for us to heal ourselves physically, mentally. We can't heal our spirit because our spirit is always, our Purusha is always happy. But that's the gateway for it, right? And if we're able to heal ourselves, then we'll come back stronger. We'll have a better understanding of who we are. Uh, and another injury happened to me in 2012 where I injured my hamstring. And this is an interesting story. So I've been practicing ever since. It's been many years. And it's only in the last year that my hamstring has felt okay. It's incredible that I was not able to straighten my leg for 8 years or 7 years. And now in the practice, the leg opens up and becomes straight. And it's not that I didn't recognize it. I was extremely mindful of what I can and cannot do. And I think that's what my recommendation would be, that be mindful of what you can or cannot do. Don't be fearful of the practice. Modify, do what you think is right. I would say learn from a teacher first, and go to a teacher who really appeals to you, whom you feel connected with. Uh, if you feel that someone is doing something which is not going in the right way with the way your mind is saying, you are right. So follow your heart, follow what the inner qualities are saying. And the second part of the question was regarding how wide your hands should be. So that's also very subjective. The way I think about it is, it is right just on the outside part of our shoulders. Just if you are looking at a mat, if you have a 2 feet wide mat or a 1.5, depends upon which mat you have, you just your the smallest finger is touching the corner of the mat. That's the way I feel. But it is extremely important to keep your fingers spread. That's one thing I can't emphasize enough, that when you're in that practice, that you have the right foundation. That's important.
Okay. So I have a combo question for you. I've put a few things together, but questions coming in from different people, but very nicely summarized by Juan Maldonado from Mexico. But it's also Dr. Jayaprakash from Sydney. So you see, we've got people really signing in from all over the world. And the questions are around the practice of the Surya Namaskara itself. So one question is, how many times, when should it be done? How many times should it be done? What is the regularity with which it should be done? And yeah, if one is injured or not, as you have said, listen to the body and you can do that. And there was also a question about the mantras, the use of the mantras in the practice. So if you'd like to address this whole package of Surya Namaskara.
All right, there was a question in when you asked previously, which I forgot to answer about, is about the strength from going from Chaturanga Dandasana to Utmukha as you go up. I don't have the strength. So I think that relates very well to this question as well. So I'll address that here. So I'll address that first. I would say keep practicing. So it's abhyasa vairagyam, and tapas. You have to
When you're asking when, Brahma Muhurtam, is that a good time?
I'll come back to that in a
Okay,
second.
sorry.
I'll come back to that question in a minute. So keep practicing, keep doing it over and over again, no matter where you are. So one of the few things that happen in the practice is we start comparing ourselves to the others because we look at some other practitioners' asanas, or we think that this is not right, that's not right. I would say the posture that you are is the perfect posture. That's where it should be. And slowly, as you keep practicing the asana, the body is such a beautiful instrument, and you should respect it in the best possible way. And physical is as important as internal. May not be for some people, but I feel that physical is as important as the inside through our meditations. And the body will surprise you in many ways. It has these magical abilities of doing things through our mind, and that's where the beauty comes in. So keep practicing, and slowly over a period of time, the strength will build in the shoulders, and you'll be able to do whatever asana that you're trying to do. Regarding when you're supposed to practice, yeah, Brahma Muhurta is a great time to practice 2 hours before the sunrise. That's when you do. I would suggest practicing in the morning than the evening if you're doing the asana practice. Though I know some people may have limitations, and now you can practice all along the day. But see what works for you. So for a lot of people, the evening practice, the body is open, so you're able to extend. But are you looking just at the physical aspect? The mind has gone through an entire day of things, so the mind is full. But when you wake up in the morning, the mind is fresh. And it's our ability to connect to the sun god, the Surya Bhagwan. And that's where the intention and the mantra is extremely important. That you are just reminding yourself that I'm trying to imbibe the qualities of something that has given us life, that's larger than life itself, that's larger than us. Can I embody the certain qualities that the sun has to offer? And that constant reminder comes in when you do it with the mantra practice. So I highly recommend doing it with mantra practice. If you're doing a self practice, that's always easier. What also the mantra practice does is it gives you that moment of contemplation, that you're coming back and you are thinking that this practice is not physical, but you look back at thousands and thousands of gurus and teachers and people who have practiced it before us and given access to us something which we may not have had access to by ourselves. So I would recommend doing it in the morning. So some practitioners practice very early. I would recommend just in my practice, it has changed during the year, so in summers, winters, spring, it keeps changing for me, but somewhere before the sunrise is what works best for me on most days, an hour before the sunrise, or when the sun comes up, body is a little bit more warm, so you can do that as well. And it's extremely important to have a good night's sleep, and I can't emphasize enough that if you don't sleep enough before the practice, no matter what you do, if you have slept a couple of hours, so I know some people who come and practice in Mysore with us, and they're coming from very long haul flights, and they come in, take the bus from the airport or a taxi or a cab to Mysore, and they reach at 3:30 in the morning, and I meet them for breakfast or in the lunch the next day. Yeah, I came in and I practiced, and you know I used to be the same way as well. I used to go on these flights or travel somewhere, and I was like, no, I have to practice, and no sleep but the practice. And I think that's when the chances of injury are the highest. So it's important to give your body enough rest and listen to your body. And there's a fine balance when you're listening to your body when it's being lazy. Like I mentioned, my teacher mentioned the people who can't practice yoga are lazy people. So practice doesn't mean that you have to do the asana practice. You can do the meditation, you can do the pranayama, you can do any practice that's accessible to you. Yeah. All right. Did I answer all the questions? Did I miss anything?
No, no, I think you covered it all. I said
Okay.
in the Vedas, the sun is also the symbol of truth. And what comes through your teaching and that of many teachers, one has to be honest to the truth of things, to one's own truth, to the reality of the time, etc. But here there's a question that is on what should be the uh, relationship of this practice with food, the food and practice. If you could just like what and when should you eat before practicing Surya Namaskara? It's a very important question. So although we are running out of time, I thought we must put that in.
Thank you for that question. Such an important question, and I think that's something that I have. I shouldn't say struggled only, but I think that's a struggle that a lot of practitioners have. Um, and if you have some time, I'd like to share a small story of the Ashtanga practitioners, or at least my practice of Surya Namaskars or the practicing journey. So most of us do tend to practice beforehand, before our teachings. And it is recommended to eat 10 to 12 hours before the practice, especially if you do it in the morning. The reason why we do that is that our digestion takes that much amount of time, and hopefully the stomach clears up, and you feel not too heavy when you practice. However, being a Punjabi, being coming from the north part of India, we have some great meals that we tend to eat, or at least I used to eat for dinner, like rajma, chole, bhature. Some of you may be aware of who are tuning in from outside, who may not know, but these are some fried things, some very heavy things, or what I shouldn't say call tamasic food because they give us energy, but they're really good foods as well. There's nothing wrong in having them, but my recommendation is not to have them at night, and not to have them when you are ready to practice. Now, what happens over a period of time, and like I said, I'll talk about myself here, that initially when I used to practice, I used to eat dinner, and I still do, but now with a 10 to 12 hour. But for a short period of time, I stopped having dinner, and I used to eat only lunch and a snack right after, and then no dinner because my practice used to be quite early in the morning. And that didn't happen overnight. That happened when I started listening to the body, that there is something that needs to change, right? That my stomach is heavy, so there is a relationship of the food that comes within. And so I start to eat light. Then I start giving up food. And a lot of socializations used to happen in the evening with friends and family. And that started changing as well. Uh, and when you see that there are a lot of changes happening around us because you have gone in a particular way of life, you realize my way is better, my way is different, all that will happen. And then you start thinking about maybe I should start eating more food, and you start junk eating, like because I've changed, or I do things differently. I don't think that's the right way. It's important to realize that you listen to your body, eat moderately, do everything in moderation, whether that's the asana practice, eating your food, and yoga is always there for you, right? You're not there for yoga. That's what I say. Like, it's like a moving train. You go on it, you do whatever is required, you come back, you live your life with it. You can make that train your own by putting those practices in your day-to-day life, and it's a beautiful life when you do that. Uh, but very important question. I think it has much broader implications than just the food, the social and the other aspect. Believe in yourself, and believe in what you're listening, what your body is saying to you. If it's saying that, I feel good when with the practice, and most people do feel good with the asana practice. So keep on that, and keep following those little breadcrumbs that keep coming up.
Thank you very much for a very holistic answer to what seemed to be a very simple, straightforward question. So thank you very much for that. I will come back to you with some questions on, some references you might want to give for texts that people can follow, because your practice is also different a little bit. So if there's anything specific to that with its benefits, etc. So if you have some text on that, on happiness, you had mentioned a book that somebody wanted to know about. So if you could please look at that, I mean, just give a summary on that and how people can contact you. But before that, I'd just like to take our audience through the remaining programs of the day. So Srinivasji, if I could request you to please put that up. So in the afternoon, Nitesh first and foremost spoke of the need to become aware of emotions, even when one is engaging with practices of Hatha Yoga. So in the afternoon, we have a very interestingly synchronized session by Siri Rama, who's an Indian classical dancer and a choreographer and teacher at Singapore. And she's going to be talking to us on Rasa Yoga, the dance of emotions. And in the evening, we have a very special lecture by one of the founder fathers of yoga in Belgium, Narayanaji, very fondly known as Narayanaji, and his original name is Joseph Kuykens. He's the founder of the Yoga Vedanta Academy in Aalst in Belgium, and he is also a direct disciple of Swami Shivananda. We will ask him to tell you his story, and which is a fascinating story of how he came into yoga at a time, about 80 years back. He's an 85-year-old grand yoga gentleman. His entire family, his wife, they've all been into yoga. So he's going to be talking to us on Bhagavad Gita, the book par excellence, the yoga book par excellence. So please stay tuned in and join these sessions. I'm getting questions on how you can join these sessions. So if you go on indicayoga.com, it has the registration, indicayoga.com. It has the registration links for all the 3 sessions. You have to register for each of the sessions separately one time, just once. And you will get the links as well as an hourly, 1 hour before the session reminder of the upcoming session. So please feel free to register for all the 3 sessions, because we've got a wonderful and excellent lineup of teachers. We are very blessed that they have accepted to speak with us, including people with experience like Nitesh Bhrata. Just a quick note, yesterday I spoke about Anna. I refer to Professor Ram Subramaniam as Anna, which is a effective term for brother in the Tamil language. So Bhrata means brother, and that's a word in Sanskrit and other Indian languages. So I have Nitesh Bhrata with us today, and now I request you to kindly tell us, give us some references, and also how people can connect to you.
So the books that Happiness Hypothesis is written by I think Jonathan Haidt. It's Haidt. That's the name of the book. If you can put that in the comments, Agni, I think that might be helpful. The other Jonathan, Haidt.
Jonathan.
Haidt, yeah.
Haidt. But you had Happiness. What was the name of the book?
Hypothesis.
Hypothesis. Okay. Yes. And for the asana, the Suryanamaskara itself, if you have something that has been written specially on this tradition?
There are many books if you look at the Ashtanga Yoga tradition. However, I would like to recommend Sri A.G. Mohan's book, Yoga Reminder. That's a beautiful book that talks about how we need to remind us, Yoga Reminder, by Sri A.G. Mohan, who's also one of the students of Krishnamacharya. That's a beautiful book to read. And about Suryanamaskars, you can look at the Bihar School of Yoga, Swami Satyananda. I think his book on Suryanamaskars from Bihar School of Yoga. That's an excellent primer to the classical Suryanamaskar practice of Suryanamaskar.
And how can people reach out to you? Because there were people saying that we'd like to do these practices. So if you're offering any online courses, if you have a website that they can connect with.
Sure, I'll just share my contact information. Can I have it in the presentation, if that's okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe we'll share this to the end. We had a final message, right? So yes. Can we do the final message first and then?
All right. So yes, maybe you'd like to tell us, would you like to do the final message now?
Yeah, is it okay if you do that, and then we can look at the contact information. So let's look at this video. I hope you can hear the audio. So this is my daughter with me. Alright, come, inhale up. Wave, exhale down. 3D, look straight ahead. Chatwari, go back. Pancha, inhale up. Shut, exhale, back. So my final message is, this I felt was the epitome of my Suryanamaskar practice, that I'm physically doing something, but my mind is saying all that, whatever is happening, whatever my daughter is doing, that I don't want to practice, I don't want to do this, I don't want. And then finally, when I because there are these things that are talking, when I come back, I celebrate with, yay, I have done this practice. So I've done the Suryanamaskara, I was able to do it. And I think that's what my message would be, that keep practicing, the mind will keep talking because it's something it's not used to, but make friends with it, make friends with your practice. And your Surya Namaskar can look like this. You can do it any way that you like, it doesn't really matter. But it's important to keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and keep listening to your inside. And regarding my contact information, I run a group called the Mindful Initiative, as Agni mentioned. We teach yoga, but I also teach compassion cultivation practice, which a practice that originated at Stanford Medical School, which is where I spent some amount of time. I was trying to think how much time learning this practice. I'm one of the certified teachers, and this training would be coming up shortly in August. It's an 8-week practice program where we understand how to develop these cultivation or these practices to cultivate the 4 things that I talked about: Maitri, Karuna being the most important, compassion, cultivation, and we go through the journey of settling our mind and eventually understanding how we can cultivate our mind with the practice of compassion and some of the others, and how it relates to our emotions. And this is my contact information.
Wonderful. So thank you very much. I just want to tell you all also that I think every International Yoga Day he does the 108 Surya Namaskara cycle. So I think if you all join with him, then maybe next year you will be ready to do that as well and see the benefits of that on the mind, on your willpower, on the body, of course. So please stay tuned with Nitesh as well. I just wanted to share one last comment here by Brigadier K. Virendra Singh, who has been a very senior participant of our shows, and we're very honored that we have an army man who is so regularly watching this yoga program with us. And he's from Nalanda, Bihar, the land of Nalanda University, and he says wonderful insights on Surya Namaskara, especially the Adhyatmic history, the spiritual part of the story. So there are many questions that we could not take up all of them. So we will have a record of it, and if with your permission we can send it over to you, and if you then have the time to answer them, we can still tap into that, share those answers with the participants. A last point here is that all these recordings are available on indicayoga.com. They will be available on the Indica Yoga YouTube channel as well as on the Facebook pages. So if you've missed out any of these sessions, please do look them up and do sign up for the remaining sessions that are yet to come. So with these few words, I would say Bahu Dhanyavada for this very enlightening session of the Surya Namaskara, the art of the Surya Namaskara. And I'm sure that the world will become a much closer place, and as people connect with each other through this medium of the global festival. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome. I just request Srinivasji to put up the poster for the afternoon session, please.